Speaking of now, are you guys ready for the winners of the New York City Browning Society High School Award winning poetry competition? All right, so here's the deal. We had a couple of people that couldn't make it out, and so we did have a short list, and we invited a couple of people, and so because they're here and we had a couple of people not show up, I just want everybody to be able to get up on the microphone and read a poem. Does that sound okay for everybody? All right, so let's start out with, from our short list, we're going to go with Nathaniel Hylton from the Collegiate School. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause.
Thank you. I just want to preface this by saying, okay, does that sound better? Yeah. So my idea of poetry is sort of words on paper that are supposed to bring questions and discussions in uncomfortable spaces that aren't, necessarily had and should be encouraged and had. So my idea of poetry is to sort of bring activism to things that are often unheard and awareness. And my inspiration is Dinesh Smith, an African-American male poet. So I'll begin. The title is Shade Me In. Blackness is a thing that crawls beneath the surface of the skin. Blackness is a thing that powered American economics via the cotton gin. Blackness at a young age festers like a sore. But blackness at an old age is something to believe in, something to embrace. My cursed black qualities make me a proud monkey. I am as skinny as a poor man's wallet, as skinny as a fishing rod without fish or bait, as skinny as a split toothpick covered in blood, as skinny as a rail that can no longer guide you, as skinny as a stem on what used to be a healthy, rosy red rose. I have a nappy hair curly on top, cut short on the sides and back, a single line etched on the left side, style. I have brown eyes like warm cocoa on a cold day, like oven-baked chestnuts in the fall, like melted Hershey Kisses when you forget them in your pocket. Like coffee and cream met to keep those eyes wide open, no opportunity for a deep sleep and American dream. I have red lips, thick, sometimes dry, but mostly wet, good enough for making love. I have black arms, bony and slightly hairy, but with skin light enough to see the green veins running through it. Black hands, long and double-jointed soft fingers with nice pink fingernails, good enough to caress you. A black upper body, ribs clearly visible, 6 abs all in eye view. An Audi good enough for no shirt on the beach. Black legs, bony and also slightly hairy, but with well-defined calves, good enough to outrun most. Black feet, size 10 and no sweat odors, but shaped flat, good enough to get through a full day of walking. For some reason, all this blackness that runs in me instills fear in others. So if you're scared of it, I guess that gives me inconceivable power. If the blackness that crawls beneath the surface of my skin is so evil, then what am I? Thank you.
Nathaniel Hylton, ladies and gentlemen, from the Collegiate School. All right, so up next from our short list, let's give it up for Bridget Farrell from the 9th grade at the Mary Louise Academy, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm just going to start by saying that I usually write prose. This is actually one of my first times writing poetry, so okay. I call this Writing Between the Lines. And when the pen tip touched the blank white page, a waterfall of words began to flow. And soon she found that she couldn't hold back all the thoughts she had kept hidden below. There's a certain sense of wonder to it, because only when she writes her stories can she access the deep parts of her mind where she wanders unmarked territories. Her own characters and fantasy worlds hold much more appeal than reality. So this author does not close with the end, she detests its sense of finality. She is a dreamer, lover, and fighter. All this and more, she is a writer.
Thank you, Bridget. All right, so our last off the short list. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Daniel Watahan from the High School of American Studies at Lehman College in the Bronx.
Hello. I wrote this about a year ago. The cement splits, and with it, the silence ends and the morning breaks, under the point of a jackhammer. A clamor of hands, bands of men seizing the streets and stammering, asking for nothing, unthinking. They wander and are led by the hand from highway to canal to bandstand and alleyway and street corner. The side streets are full of disorder. From the crack between the subway tracks and the streets, towards the light they reach, out of line and out of step. From a brief sleep they wake, from the dark tunnels of the trains they rush forward for the fresh air and the rain, flooding like sewer water, burning like arson fire, they dance and sing and scream in pain down the roads under gray skies. Like jazz pianists, they improvise, they hold the world in their eyes, they won't collapse under the weight. Beneath the heavy pressure they wait for the day they might escape, but there is no escape, so they adapt, and they train themselves not to snap, not to disagree or talk back, and in their wake, they turn the city black with the dirt and the soot and the trash, black like the shadows of the skyscrapers and the thoughts of the men in their penthouses. Forgive them, for they feel it not. Their wristwatches and their clocks tick. They don't stop. Their hearts turn with the springs and the gears are hot. They cannot stop now. Nothing will stop them. They cannot stop themselves. They halt only for a moment, and their car horns roar, and their hot blood runs, and their hot air vents to the sky. They charge on if they can. Their wheels only stop if they must. They must stop. There is no stopping them. Thank you.
All right. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our short list. These are the kids that just too good enough that we couldn't invite to get them up on stage and hear their poems. So I suppose then that leaves us with the winners. Julian, are you here? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to let you guys know that all of our winners and our short list are published online and also in a collection of poetry sponsored by the New York Browning Society that will be available at the New York City Poetry Festival. This is going to be July 29th and 30th this year at Governor's Island. So everyone here that's performing is welcome to come out and join us and perform on stage at Governor's Island at the New York City Poetry Festival. Typically it's Sunday at around 1 o'clock. So I'll let you know, but if you could get in contact with me or as soon as I get the exact schedule, I will let you know. And that's usually a really fun time. If you've never made it out to Governor's Island for the New York City Poetry Festival, it's a really excellent opportunity to get your verse out there, and we'll have a collection of poetry in which you're featured in. So with that being said, our winners, on top of that, also win a check for $100 and a selection of Browning's poetry. So we have here Robert and Elizabeth Browning, collection of their poetry, winning check for $100 and a certificate for, let's give a round of applause for Julian R. Navarro from Xavier School, ladies and gentlemen. Look good? That's me. All right.
Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan, I'd like to sing this one. Could you? No. All right. Here goes it. Ironclad watchdogs in their rusty coats stand guard against the sea. Ants of commerce are permitted, and the buzzing sun is peered at with suspicion, as though it were a threat unworthy. Their swaying dribbles of steel hang in apathy, as do the cocked caps and slumped shoulders of the coral vacation land to the east, a kingdom of sun-bleached and sand-filled pastel pink apartment sits protected in its sin. The wispy clouds peek down at the seated and open-toed, leather-skinned laggards who return an upwards glance for a passing moment, only to return to their worldly observations of the blind, zinc-coated faces who walk past in ignorance with their concrete-slapping flip-flops. That's called The Port of Miami is Sunburnt Too. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian Navarro, once again from Xavier High School, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, so let's take a look. We have up next, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause for Giovanni Santalucia out of the High School of American Studies in Bronx, New York. Book, check. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. I guess, thank you very much, Mr. James Keppel and the New York Browning Society. This poem is titled Untitled. That irreversible stain on the edge of my window spoke to me more than any white-robed archangel or celestial monk ever could. I was 6, read to from tattered pages each night, still young enough to fall asleep on the rocking chair, but old enough to dream of rain-glazed Greenland or Singapore with her dewy horns. But I was still young enough to hide. Living in the wind, our own pint of heaven stuffed into some corner or other. The paper on the globe in my room grew old and cracked like thinning lilac petals, but never stopped spinning. To have a world under my palm, to have a world away from the hallways bloated with Folgers tins and film canisters, away from the sick sweet summer and my mother's slow-talking friends, was burning glee. I'd watch clouds, crisp yellow around the edges, creep along as the hot, hollow sky sunk over fields outside, where stuttering millet interrupted our house's shadow. We weren't among the pockets of life scattered along the road. We were never ones to remember names or draw straight lines or carry folders. Sometimes you get lost and you don't even know it. Thank you.
Giovanni Santalucia, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Bringing the fire. Let's see, who's up next? All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, our next winner is, let's give a warm round of applause for Clay Hard out of the Collegiate School, ladies and gentlemen. Book, check. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, all right.
Hello. So I'm a runner. I run track and cross country. And so just like a short preface, a lot of people ask me, why do you do that? It sounds insane. You just make yourself hurt a lot for a long time. And so I've thought about that a lot too. And so this poem kind of came out of just trying to think about that. Because it's something, honestly, that I don't even know if I can answer. So this is called Footsteps. The leaves fall early this autumn in wind. This might sadden some, but to me, it means the softening of the ground and that smell of damp leaves in the dirt I love so much. As I hurtle through the woods, the footsteps of others fading behind me, all I can hear now is my own breath and the crunch of the cinder path beneath the spikes on my feet. I tend to feel like an animal, panting, teeth bared, moving as fast as I can as I dig into the hill ahead of me. Strangely, though, I feel now the most peaceful I felt in a while, me and the trail. The pain arrives, but that only confirms that I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I speed up. Strangely, again, at the peak of the hill and at the peak of my suffering, a grin spreads across my face. That's why I do it. Why I add an extra 3 hours of work to my days. Why I hurt even when I'm feeling most tired. Even when most kids dropped off the team, I'm still here. And I'm loving it. Thank you.
Clay hard, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't clay hard, just go home, right? All right. So, up next, all right, we have, all the way from the Xavier School, let's give a warm round of applause for Eli Schuchert, ladies and gentlemen. Schuchert, right? Schuchert. Close enough. Check, book. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. So my poem is based on a Elizabeth Barrett Browning poem called A Lady's Yes. Most of you are probably familiar with it. It's also based on the Me Too movement that's been going on since about last year. A woman's yes isn't a must. It changes like the wind. In a moment, long, strong gusts. The next, hard to find. A woman's yes on the phone means nothing at this hour. What changes? His tone. She shudders to the bone. A woman's yes is full of power. It is an accusation that should make men cower. It is strong alone, yet stronger received when she finds herself to be believed. A woman's yes should be heard, not put to rest. Is that what's deserved?
All right, Eli. Let's see here. So, just to let you know, we had a member from the High School of American Studies, Susanna Schul, that could not make it with us today. Will you take home with her, or whoever? Yeah, you'll take home, Giovanni? Yeah, cool. So, let's give a warm round of applause for Susanna Schul, who cannot make it for her award-winning poetry. And without that, we always save the best for last. Let's give a warm round of applause from the Xavier School. Once again, Kalvin Singleton, ladies and gentlemen.
Looks amazing.
Okay, go.
Hello, everyone. Don't you love when things like come back full circle? The very first poetry that we started to read today was from Mr. Tom Hilly, and it was actually the poem that inspired me, named Porphyria's Lover. And it was, do you remember about the storm, like relating to last night? And yeah, the climax of that poem is how a man's wife, he ends up strangling her. He's not right in the head, obviously, to preserve her beauty. And that's where I get this poem from, titled Porphyria's Muse. I was caught within the storm, with the wind unforgiving, but to my lover, who makes me warm, is where I was headed this evening, wrapped in visions, lost with dreaming. But the weather would not taint the night, I declared when I shut out the cold. To restore the warmth with all my might, I sparked a fire, bright and bold, and rose from the hearth to derobe. Water-filled was the coat that I hauled, drenched scarf and gloves alike. I removed my hat and let my blonde hair fall, and last I sat by his side. I called to him, to no reply. I knew my hands to his their guide, so I wrapped his arm round and stared back at myself deep within his eyes and filled the room with mumbles of sound. I love you, I said. To you I am bound. Passion-filled and insane, to act on these feelings was my only endeavor. But too sickly my body remained, white and pale as ever, light and thin as a feather. We rose from the bed together, and in his eyes I found a look I have seen never, when he wrapped my hair 1, 2, 3 times my throat now, and strangled. Not pain, but pressure filled my head, as the sound of my very own heart got louder in my ears. I asked myself in fear, will I soon be dead? No emotion, not even a tear. His face remained as it was, blank and clear. Soon there was nothing, a ubiquitous shadow around us. With my rosy cheeks still blushing, he lifted my body, doll-like and tenuous. But yet, I had not moved at all. There I stood. There I concluded, a posteriori, where I stood alone in the land of the betwixt, purgatory, yet fixed and anchored in my own home, perpetual Stockholm syndrome. But this final act done by him, some could see as malignant, was a gift to prevent my body's dim, to forever have a rosy and youthful existence, free from fever and sickness. My lover holds me now, and through my hair his fingers will stir. To have a love like this, I know not how. Although the actions have occurred, God has not yet said a word. Thank you.